Welcome to this episode of Health Reversion. You're here with Adrian, and we're going to get straight into the characteristics of a blood type O. Blood type O's are capable of burning large amounts of animal protein as their main source of fuel. Now, when choosing the animal protein, be sure to choose, if possible, organic, lean cuts that have preferably been pasture-raised or grass-fed in the case of beef and lamb. Grains, breads, legumes and beans aren't particularly suited to the type O blood type. The exclusion of these may help the individual to achieve their ideal weight. Now, with respect to the grains, focusing in here on the gluten lectin that would be contained in wheat, rye and barley, this poses particular issues by inhibiting the insulin metabolism that takes place in your body. Consuming gluten for a type O would be the equivalent of putting in a very low quality, low octane fuel into a high performance vehicle. It's just not going to do it any service, and over time it's going to clog the mechanical parts with all of the soot. This can affect the energy metabolism for the muscles and essentially make them less charged for physical activity. Moving on to vegetables now. These make up a significant portion of what a type O is recommended to eat. Leafy green vegetables that are rich in vitamin K, such as spinach, kale and broccoli, are beneficial for the type O's, whereas nightshade vegetables such as potatoes and eggplant, they actually contain lectins that don't really work with the blood type O, and they can actually exacerbate arthritic conditions, as those lectins like to hide out in the joints specifically, and obviously this can create arthritic conditions, movement restrictions, maybe not getting that flexibility that you once had because of the continuous deposit of these lectins in and around the joints. Corn is also something to avoid on this particular regime. It contains a lectin that has an adverse impact on the production of insulin. Type O's can be susceptible to issues with their thyroid. Thyroid hormone may run low in type O's, and this is known as hypothyroidism. Hypo being the word for operating at a lower level or a reduced rate, and this is due to low levels of iodine, which again might be able to be supplemented in the diet, but for some reason in the research that Diatomo did, he found that a lot of the type O's ran low in iodine, and iodine is crucial for the production of the thyroid hormone. So if the body's not getting enough iodine, the thyroid hormone is running at low levels, and this can affect the whole body in a range of ways, particularly around weight fluctuations. Overall though, the type O's place meats, vegetables and fruits as the main macro groups, the main food groups that you would look to. So from an ancestral point of view, or from a caveman point of view, which a lot of people like to refer to, the blood type O is very similar there. So some beneficial foods for type O's include liver, red meat and vegetables such as kale, spinach and broccoli. They're some of the beneficial foods which, according to the research, will actually give you a lift, will actually do beneficial things within the body. And finally, in relation to exercise, type O's are unique in the sense that they can withstand quite a lot of intense physical exercise. So if that happens to be in your place of work, if you're doing heavy lifting, lots of laborious work, then that can be something that's really suited to a type O. But from an exercise perspective, it's probably more looking at things like high intensity interval training, looking at resistance training with large weights. These are the types of things that the type O's can excel at and actually get a lot of benefit from by incorporating that into their routine. A word of caution for the blood type O's: you do have this wonderful ability to be quite resistant to stress. So if a stress is presented to you, sometimes you'll just be able to shake it off and move through it. Another stress comes along, shake it off, move through it. And that can go on for quite some time. However, with prolonged stress, and this is probably for anybody on the planet, but more so the type O's, if you actually do end up getting into a very stressed state and you can feel it in your body, you can feel your heart rate change, you can feel anxious, etc. The caution here and the advice here is just to recognize that it can take a long time for a blood type O to get back out into a relaxed state. So if you're at that particular gym session and maybe you're being egged on by people and they're like, come on, like you can push this last one out and you can go and do this and then do 20 burpees over there and whatever the exercises happen to be, just understanding that yes, you'll be able to go over, you'll be able to do those things, you'll probably be able to smash them out and impress everybody, but just making sure it's not for too long a prolonged time, so that if you do get into that stress state, you could find that you stay wound up and you stay at that elevated level of stress for a lot longer, and you're going to have to do lots of counter activities such as meditation or diaphragmatic breathing, other tools and strategies that you'll need to use to get yourself out of that stress state. So sure, go and do those stressful things, but make them short, get them done, and then make sure that you relax afterwards. As I've mentioned in previous videos, instead of doing a 2-day kickstart, which would enable you to look at all of the foods that were beneficial, which were neutral, and which were a void, there's a lot to take into account there, and it's very difficult just to do in a couple of days. So as I've mentioned before in my video, The Bloody Truth, I've provided a PDF that you can download in the description section of this video, and that contains all of the avoid foods. Now, you don't have to necessarily look at that list and go, oh, I can't have any of these. I have mentioned, again, in my video on The Bloody Truth, there are ways around reducing the amount of lectins that are actually there at the end once it's been either boiled, steamed, baked, fermented, etc. So if you see some things in the avoid list and you think, I just can't do without it, I'm not even going to try, just persevere there, have a go, avoid them for now. You've got time on your side. Give it a week, give it 2 weeks, maybe longer. See if there's a difference. If there's a difference, wonderful. You've then discovered something that you can implement going forward. But if there hasn't been a difference, that's fine. You can go back to eating those foods. So have a look at that list. Look at reducing or eliminating those avoid foods for the time being. And let me know how you go. I'd be really interested to see if you get anything out of this, if any changes have taken place for you. Thank you for watching through to the end of this video. If you didn't get anything out of this video, give it a thumbs down. If you got something out of it, please give it a thumbs up and consider subscribing to the channel. In the meantime, I ask that you keep well, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video.